Right, I've come to the village of Combe in Berkshire, and you can see behind me the beautiful Berkshire countryside rolling away. It really is one of the most quintessentially English areas that I've seen, at least the kind of England that I'm used to: rolling hills, sheep, chalk, that sort of thing. And yet, despite that, there is a macabre stain here in the village of Combe. We're about 5 miles south of Hungerford, and the site of somewhere quite interesting. You can see that this is the meeting point of many roads. We've got two roads coming down from this hill, two roads down there, and over the hill is another road. This is important. This was meant to be seen by as many people as possible. Up at the top of that hill is a spike from this perspective, and that is Combe Gibbet, a gibbet for hanging people. It was erected in 1676 to hang two specific people, Thomas Brunham and Dorothy Newman. They were adulterers from nearby villages, and they were caught by a man called Mad Thomas murdering Thomas Brunham's wife and son so that the adulterers could be together. The judge was so appalled by this that he ordered them hanged, and this gibbet erected up in the hills so that everyone would remember, because the crime of murder was committed here up on the hills, where it was thought no one would see it, there would be no witnesses. And as such, the gibbet was erected and the bodies were hanged from it so that everyone would remember that justice applies everywhere. The gibbet that we see today is actually a replica constructed quite recently, because the original had long since rotted away, and the local area is actually quite fond of it. They have replaced it at least twice since the original was erected. Now I think they're just appreciating its tourism bonuses. It is a landmark. You can see it all the way across the valley everywhere you look. But in the old days it was a very pertinent reminder that justice was blind and justice would find you. And this is a huge puddle. I'm going to have to find a way across. It's huge. You can see here West Berkshire sheep, not the breed, just the location. Sheep farming was very important in this area. Always been very good sheep country. And it's quite exposed up on the hills, so not many regular crops will grow. Similar to Wales in that regard. Wiltshire, Berkshire, quintessential English sheep country. You can see the chalk in the road here. That's quintessential Downs chalk. This is part of the Wessex Downs, area of outstanding natural beauty. And you'll find if you dig down only a few feet, you'll get chalk just like this. Sometimes a few layers of clay, but usually it's chalk for several hundred meters. But it does give beautiful hills and some quite astounding views. Not perfect views today because of the cloud, but it is starting to thin. And you can see, at least with the human eye, all the way to the horizon as you normally would. And so there it is, Combe Gibbet. It's built on a long barrow from the Bronze Age, called Inkpen Long Barrow. Inkpen and Combe are the two nearest villages. And it does give astounding views. I will walk up to it in a minute. You can see as a gibbet it is very high, so there's plenty of room to hang people. According to some legends, the people hanged were ordered to stay there until their bones rotted out of the ropes. But that's comparatively unlikely. British justice was reforming at the time and probably wasn't so cruel-hearted. But nonetheless, it is telling how the local people interpreted this macabre sight on their hillside. You can see just as far on the other side of the gibbet. The horizon is a little more closed thanks to the hills, but it is similarly distant. And again, another beautiful example of English countryside. Sheep in the fields, hawks overhead, pheasants running between the woods. It's a very beautiful area. I'm sure you can hear from the wind noise how much wind is going on up here. I do have a windsock on my microphone, but even so, hang gliding is a very popular hobby up here. It's a very steep hill, so it's great for just leaping off and following the thermals. I'm going to go into the field itself and get close to the gibbet now. Hopefully the sheep won't bother us. The sun is trying to come out here in March. So here we are. This is the gibbet. As far as I'm aware, it is an accurate replica. Possibly these iron supports have been added to it. One thing I find quite interesting is that while it lacks the top piece, it is reminiscent of a giant cross. That down there is the road that I drove up to get here, and you can see this hill and its gibbet for miles. The village of Inkpen over there, you can see it from there. You can almost see it from Hungerford. I'm sure you could if it was a little bigger. You can definitely see the hill it's on. And there's lots of footpaths here. You can see a footpath going down there, that takes you to Inkpen. You can probably walk from here to Hungerford in a day, and back. I mean, 5 miles, 6 miles, it's not too bad. And the hills are fairly gentle. At least compared to somewhere like Wales. They're quite gentle hills. It's a very interesting juxtaposition between the death imagery of the gibbet and the natural beauty and life of coming here in spring. It's also interesting to think that the gibbet was erected to remind people that the Downs had to have the same quality of justice as the town, and yet now the hills are considered the much more peaceful place with a much lower crime rate. It's rather strange to think about. 340 years this last year, 341 this year, since the hanging. And how this landscape has changed since then, I can't even imagine. One thing I'll add, just as an addendum to here, is it's really nice to go somewhere in England where there is basically no one as far as the eye can see. Everywhere you tend to go in the countryside in England, there's usually a couple of people around, other tourists, just cars passing by. But most of the time I've been here about half an hour, there's been no one, not a single other human being. There's a few cars parked in the same car park, but other than that I've been all on my own, which is a very pleasant experience. Feeling alone in such a big empty space is quite unusual and pleasant. It's quite rare to get that feeling in England, especially.